Bueno, vamos a practicar con muchísimas cosas hoy, claro, como siempre. I hope what's on the agenda is, I'll take any questions you got from especially the reading homework, or anything in those little digital readouts that you might have to have a question on. We're going to do some work with prepositions. We're going to do some practice with that. We're going to do some practice with verbs like usted. And okay, a ver. I want to also see, boy, forgive me, I should remember if I had sent this out. Did I send you guys out some little video links about how to split your screen? That is, have Zoom on one side of your screen and something else completely running right next door to it. Did I send that along?
I forgot to read it.
For Windows 10, you did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, for Windows, not for Mac.
Okay. Yeah. And how many of you have Mac? And
Okay.
Is it Mac or iPad? It's iPad for Karen.
Mac.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I could probably shrink.
And I need to send the one for Mac. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Both.
So here's what I want to do tonight before we do anything else. I just want to show you what it will look like if you can figure out how to do this. And that will mean playing around with it. And you don't have to be playing around with Zoom. It can be any two things on your screen. I will send the video references with the email on both Mac systems and Windows again. But I do want to show you what it will look like and why it will be useful. Okay. So I need to move something over here. Okay, we're going to do share screen, and I want you to just see what it will look like. Okay. We want, oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. Are you guys seeing the screen, or are you seeing my notes?
Your notes.
My notes.
Your
Okay,
notes.
that's what you should be seeing. Okay.
Spanish for beginners,
There we
September
go.
28th.
Yeah, that's my Monday class. Okay. Here's what I want to show you, and of course, because it doesn't want it, there we go. There we go. Here's what we eventually want you to be able to do. And I want you to kind of watch my cursor. I'm moving it around so you can see where the cursor is. Okay. We want you to be able to eventually minimize this screen. I want you to watch. I'm going to bring the cursor up to the very top bar of my Zoom. Bring it down and just to the side. And you see how suddenly it's taking up like 3/4 of the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, what you should be able to do is to not totally minimize and send it to the bottom, but make your Zoom screen smaller, like half of your screen. And then take anything. Whoops.
I lost them.
Take any other screen you want,
Yeah.
and have them side by side.
Okay.
Now, if you guys can figure out how to do this, and I may even need to like actually do a live Zoom session some other time, but the benefit of this is you could be getting a little assignment in Nearpad that you have running on the left-hand side, your Zoom running on the right-hand side. And you can be doing work here on the left while you're talking with somebody in a breakout room here on the right. So in other words, you've got two screens right next to each other, and you can make these whatever size you want. You know, when you're working in a breakout room, it really isn't important that you're looking at your partner. It's important that you hear your partner. So even if I were to cover up this whole Zoom screen, I would be hearing all of you guys. So I could be like partnered off with one person in the breakout room and be typing something here. Oops. And of course, I can't do it now because it's not cooperating. Here we go. And, you know, get my link for this. I could pass on a link to you, send it through, and then you could be working in this screen.
That'd be great if we had
So, you know, eventually that's what I would like us to be able to do. I don't know if that's going to be practical, but I'm hoping, because the videos to watch to learn how to do this are usually only about 2 or 3 minute videos. They're not long. And it's just a matter of taking your screen, and I'll bring up one again. Going up here to the top bar, bringing it to the side, and then letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing this up, you know, again, clicking at the top. And you can be working simultaneously in 2 screens. Now, I know people who do this all the time in meetings because they'll take notes and be working a meeting visually with people. And it's the only really efficient way. People who do this a lot tell me, you know, there is no way I can physically write notes while I'm sitting there on the Zoom screen or on the phone with somebody, either way. So, you know, just saying, if we can figure that out, it would really, really be a huge, huge help, because I would be able to send you out. I could give you a link for go in and find this lesson. You could take that link, make your Zoom screen half your screen, pull up an extra web browser, put the link for the exercise, and you could be working on an exercise with your partner while you see them on Zoom. Now, I'm thinking for an iPad as opposed to like an Apple computer. Apple computer, I think it's going to be easier. An iPad, it may work. I am not sure. It may work as you toggle between the 2 screens.
I'm not sure there's enough power to do that much time.
That might be a problem for you, Karen. I'm not sure. And if it is, we'll just avoid it or find a workaround, or I'll give you something to bring up ahead and maybe print out.
Well, I have this desktop computer, which is completely different. It's not an Apple product.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I could call something up on that. I would have to log in 2 different ways.
Yeah. I don't know.
So I just looked on Google, and you can, if you do a search on how, so this whole thing is called the tile windows. So has nothing to do with the Windows software. It's got to do with each individual screen is a window. So what you're doing is tiling windows. So if you do a search on how to tile windows on iPad, there's instructions on how to do it, because I'm using an iPad as well.
So it's called tiling for Apple?
Tile, T-I-L.
Okay.
How to tile windows. And
Okay.
it's not software specific. That's just the information technology term on what we are trying to explain to do.
Okay. Okay. So the nice thing about this is that if I have these 2 screens going, for example, I've got a little, I've got a little poll for you guys to take. And you could be taking this poll while you're talking with me, and I could be seeing like immediately. If you wanted to use those little virtual Post-it pads on that little virtual corkboard, you could be doing that in a small group, and then we could come back and look at them all right away, which would be really kind of nice, because then you can immediately see what you did, how you did, and you know, it's a helpful thing to be able to do. I'm crossing my fingers we may get there at some point. So I'm going to try to give you some tools to learn that. And if you guys decide that you want to do like a trial session to try it out real time when it's not on your dime, which is now that we could maybe decide on a day and a time to do that with some small groups of people. So,
Okay, this is kind of interesting. While you were talking, when I could see the shared screen with, 9 people, and then I could see you in the little box down on the bottom, you were looking in 2 different directions.
yes, because I have 2 screens.
But everybody, I could see me and I'm looking in the wrong direction from what I'm looking at. It's like mirror image.
Yeah, this
So I was
happens all the
getting-
time. Yeah, and people frequently tell me, "Oh, look, so and so is here." Who I see off here to my left is not necessarily who you see off your left. It's Patricia is right there, and for a lot of you, she probably isn't right there. And it's.
But it
just-
was you looking to the left up at the top and you looking to the right down at the bottom, or vice versa. You at exactly the same time. Just
Yeah. Well.
it was weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like Hollywood
So, with hopefully no further ado, I want to get started. So, that'll be kind of a little independent project. And again, if you guys decide that, there's a time you want to practice it outside of class, let me know. I'm certainly open to doing that, as long as it's not a class time of some other class, which case I have to be there. Okay. A ver. Bien. 10 preguntas. Do you guys have any questions about the that little reading on donar cheques, donating checks? Any questions about that? Anything that was not logical in the reading? Didn't make sense? You got it wrong and you're like, I have no clue why they did that. I'm going to put it up on share screen now so you can take a quick look. That might help refresh your memory. Ooh, yeah, do you guys see it? Yeah.
Interesting, Marilyn, actually the third sentence I would have, and so tell me where I'm wrong on this one. I guess I don't have the license because it's an adjective to put después before semanas.
Ooh, third sentence.
So the third sentence, luego, periodo.
Luego.
Tres
Luego.
semanas después.
Luego perdió el trabajo 3 semanas después.
Sí.
Later, she
Right.
lost her job 3 weeks afterwards. Yeah, it seems a little redundant, doesn't it?
What is it after 3 weeks?
Yeah. Or sometimes luego gets a translation of then. Then she lost her job 3 weeks later.
Yeah, I think that's what screwed me up. I couldn't quite figure out why it was there.
I did not think about that as I pasted that story in, but yeah, that seems kind of like a redundant thing. And that's just that luego is used as later, but sometimes can be then. And it's just being used as a sequence word to lead off a sentence. And if it seems redundant, just cut that off. Luego is kind of just, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it's one of those by the way words. It doesn't have burning important information.
Marilyn,
it's a sequence word.
Sorry.
No.
That same sentence, could you have put después before tres? Or does it have to come, like?
No, you could have said this. Perdió el trabajo después de 3 semanas. After 3 weeks.
That would have made
If
more
you
sense.
move después up in front of 3 semanas, it has to be después de. That's another thing, see, this ties into that preposition thing again. Después is sometimes used by itself. Okay, so if I move después up to the very front of the sentence with a comma, I could say después perdió el trabajo en 3 semanas. En 3 semanas. Lost a job in 3 weeks' time. Después de with a chunk of time, it's got to be después de.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, because then it's tied in with a period of time, and then it's después de. Antes does the same thing. So your opposites, because después and antes, después after, antes before, are opposite, mirror image words, opposites of each other, right? And después and antes behave the same way. Antes le dije a mi esposo, before I said to my husband, before, comma, I said to my husband, antes le dijo a mi esposo, but I said this after cooking. I said this after, or I said this after eating. Le dije algo después de comer, antes de comer. So antes de, which you got something following it, before doing something or after doing something, then it's going to be después de or antes de. Sometimes we just say before or after, and then después or antes stand alone. And that pretty much comes from just hearing lots of examples, reading lots of examples. Those are good questions that I would not have thought of. Okay, I must. Prepositions are something you shouldn't allow yourselves to get hung up on, but it makes it easier if you get it sequenced right for somebody to understand you. Perdón, Juanita?
The word calificó and then calificaba, and yeah, that word kind of confused me. I know it's somewhere up there.
It is. Right after the COVID-19, ganó calificada.
And then calificó. And does it somehow relate to California?
They're both, no,
No,
they are just imperfect and preterite of the same verb.
Oh, okay.
Imperfect and preterite of the same verb. Calificada was qualifying, or in this case, it's a negative. No calificada was not qualifying for, didn't qualify for, but not with a time reference. Calificó is qualified, boom, end of story, end of event.
Okay.
Denied or approved, okay? Or calificada was qualifying. It would be more common to hear that in preterite, I will tell you. It would be more common, but the person telling the story decides whether they want that rolling thing of this was happening versus it happened and it's done. And the person who's speaking decides which verb makes more sense according to what is upstairs here in their mind. That is really the way to look at it. And not worry so much of, well, why is that imperfect? Well, they considered it more descriptive, or it was an ongoing thing. That's it, and move on. Versus, oh, qualified, they checked it off, or they said, you're done.
Okay.
Over with. So let it paint a picture in your mind, but don't let it get you hung up. And this whole thing of using the 2 past tenses is something we need to do more of. So that's okay. Bien, ¿hay más preguntas?
I had a question back on that sentence about losing the job. If you just looked at the sentence and you didn't have the rest of the context, I think it was one of the questions there, I was interpreting it as the job was lost 3 weeks later. Is there a way that I know it means she lost the job?
Yes, there is.
Okay, can you explain what I should have?
She lost, and a human being did it.
Right.
Perdió. Se perdió would mean the job was lost. Se perdió el trabajo would be the job was lost. It would be passive voice. The job didn't lose anything. It
I
was
would
passive. It was
stay on
active.
it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's good to tell. Okay. I
Se
got
perdió el trabajo would mean, oh, it's a passive structure. And that's a possibility. All these little words that mess with your brain, they do. Okay, I mess or no. Es un artículo de buenos sentimientos. It is a kind of a good feel story. People doing nice things. Okay. Bien. Eso es todo. That's it for that one? ¿Sí o no?
Federico, una pregunta.
Okay. Dime.
Now I gotta find it. Oh, okay. Parecía amable. Parecia amable. What is that?
Parecía sing. Parecía amable.
Parecía
Seems nice. Amable
Oh,
is kind of like
Oh,
simpático.
Oh, I see. Yeah, got it. No, okay. I got it.
Amable, kind, considerate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Muy amable. Muy amable is some people will throw out where, you know, you held a door open for somebody. Say you held the door open for somebody, being the gentleman you are. And somebody looks at you, smiles, and just says, muy amable. They're just saying, you're so kind.
Okay.
And they won't put a verb in with that at all. Ah, muy amable. And the implication is, oh, how sweet. It's a thank you without saying thank you. Muy amable. Somebody is acknowledging your kindness. Buenas tardes. Amable es una palabra muy poderosa. Amable is a powerful word. It is a word that people throw out in speaking to people every day to acknowledge kindness, to say thank you. Somebody gets up on the bus so that you can take a seat. All you need to do is look at them, muy amable. And they know that you're thanking them. Amable is a wonderful complimenting word when somebody helps you out.
So is it a higher level of thank you if you wanted to say mi amable versus gracias? Or is it conveying a more
yeah, in a way,
sincerity or action?
It is more personal.
Okay.
It is much more personal. Instead of just gracias, it is acknowledging that you are saying to someone, I recognize how nice you are being. You're a good egg. You're a good one. It is much more personal level. And they'll think you know much more Spanish.
And then they'll start talking to you.
And then they'll start talking to you. Despacio, despacio, por favor. Okay.
But when your eyes roll back in your head, then they'll know, okay, you know, too much.
But, you know, one word at a time. And people appreciate acknowledgement of, you know, their personal effort. We all appreciate that. It makes people want to help you more. It will make them want to slow down for you, even if they do, you know, take off at a fast clip. Okay, muy bien. ¿Hay más preguntas o no? De ese artículo. ¿No? Ok. Muy bien. Vamos a ver. We are going to talk about some of these little prepositions, so that you can see how they work. For me to tell you, get out there and memorize every preposition would be totally cruel and pretty useless. Useless, I'm going to add, because really it's too much for your mind to absorb. Prepositions in English are very hard to explain. I know prepositions in German are just murderously hard for me as an English speaker. Murderously hard. French prepositions I do better with. German, oh boy, on, ooh, man, which one? Yeah, all kinds of rules, and you have to learn the patterns. So really more important with these prepositions, yes, know what they mean, but know the patterns you're going to hear them in. Know the patterns and practice some patterns. Know the patterns and practice some patterns. And so you've got to take a reasonable chunk, which is what we're going to do today, and take a look. And these are all, every word is going to be something you're familiar with on some level. But they may or may not always translate to the same usage we do. So we want you to see some patterns with this. I am going to take, I put them in a specific order for a reason. Yes or no? Okay. We're going to take a look at they first. The prepositions I really want us to focus on tonight are a, en, de, and para. A, en, de, para. A mistake I see you guys do fairly frequently, many of you fairly frequently, and don't think I'm saying that to be harsh. It's because it is a natural kind of mistake that all English speakers make, are these prepositions, because we're not quite sure which one to shift in there. You know, we think from our English patterns it should be one thing and it winds up being something else. And then you feel, oh, yeah, the discouragement. Okay. But you shouldn't feel discouraged. We should just kind of remember some of the patterns. So what I'm going to do first is show some things with this word they. And I'm really actually kind of glad that you guys brought up they last week, because they has so many meanings. And again, you should try not to memorize every meaning, but to get used to those patterns. And these again are going to be patterns that everybody speaking English sometimes gets wrong. So we're going to take a look at just they in isolation, only because they is used in so many specific things that do not translate exactly, and yet they're essential. If you have somebody talking for 15 minutes, they're going to use they a whole bunch of times in different contexts. So we're going to look at the contexts. Oops, and you know what? I've got to unshare that because it's not going to share it with sound. I have to remember to click on my sound boxes to make sure you can hear it. Okay, aquí vamos.
Hola amigos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos. Hi friends, and welcome back to another lesson of the Language Tutor Spanish series. Have you clicked subscribe yet? And the notification bell? If you haven't.
And if you want to subscribe to him, I wholeheartedly encourage it. He has very good series. They're all broken down into very manageable bits.
Please do that for us. We don't want you to miss any of the great content coming out on the Language Tutor YouTube channel. And also, hey, if you know anybody that wants to learn Spanish, French, Portuguese, English for Spanish speakers, tell them about the Language Tutor. Have them click subscribe and the notification bell. We'd appreciate that support. And we want to help as many people as we can. And speaking of helping people, this is another viewer requested lesson. Somebody.
You are not the only people who wonder about this stuff. They got a high percentage of people asking for this.
Shot me a message on the Spanish Facebook page, the Language Tutor Spanish Facebook page, and they said, hey, what about a video with the many uses of the word de? Okay, you got it. So here we go. I'm going to give you several examples of how we use the word de in Spanish. And I think I'm going to pretty much cover it all. But hey, if you want to Google it, get more examples, go for it. I encourage that. But practice it. Here we go. First of all, we can use de to say who owns it. Who owns it? We don't say that's John's book. Nope, it's the book of John. Okay? That's not Carmen's house. Nope. It's the house of Carmen.
I'm going to tell you guys that very few of you guys make this mistake anymore. Very few. Very few. I cannot remember the last time I saw this mistake with this group. So that's good. This is something that is a recurring, ongoing thing because we want to use apostrophe S so horribly badly, and it does not work. So here, so again, important to know, possession, ownership, apostrophe S, it's the equivalent of this. Okay.
And we know that of and from is de. So let's do this one. It's Julia's house. In Spanish, it would be, it's the house of Julia. So it would be, es la casa de Julia. All right, la casa de Julia, because we say the house of Julia. All right, and apostrophes, they don't exist in Spanish, so we can't show possession like that. You can use de to show where somebody's from. I am from, she is from. So I am from the United States. That's yo soy de los Estados Unidos. Yo soy de los Estados Unidos. All right. Now I'm asking you where you're from. From, where are you? ¿De dónde eres? Or I can say, ¿de dónde eres tú? If I wanted to.
And I want you to notice something with this word donde. So I'm going to pause in here for a minute. Not donde eres tú de, where are you from? The from can't hang off the back end there. It's got to be, if you're going to use a little preposition, no matter what it is, it must come in front of that donde if you're using it with donde. De donde, a donde, okay? De donde, a donde. Both of those. A donde is going to be that movement thing. To where? De donde, from where. Okay? Yeah? So when you're using it with donde, it's got to be in front of the donde to make that question.
Two. If I want to be respectful, ¿de dónde es usted? Okay, now this is just all review stuff, but that's one way we can also use de. We can use de sometimes when we just want to refer to a general time of day. Okay, we've talked about saying de la noche. We've talked about saying por before when we're using time in general, but we can use de also. So he works at night. Él trabaja de noche.
Not he works of night. He works at night. Él trabaja de noche. Muy común.
You can use that just to imply at night in general. Okay, so there's one more. Here comes another one. We can use de to talk about why something happened or the reason behind something happening. We can say this one. It's bad news, but Juan failed from not studying. Okay, sorry, Juan, should have studied. Juan fracasó de no estudiar. Okay, so Juan fracasó de no estudiar.
I would tell you this is one that's kind of an icing on the cake reason. Conversationally, I don't think you're as likely to use this as the other things he's going to give. Not that it isn't helpful, because it is, but it's maybe not quite as common in your everyday conversation as a lot of the other ones. Just tuck that in the back of your mind.
Again, just a quick note here. Estudiar, I know you're going, hey man, you told me earlier that estudiar with an AR means to study, right? So Juan failed of not to study. Well, kind of, but estudiar with the AR or any verb with the ARE or IR can also function as a gerund.
Okay, so what does he mean by that? You may not know what a gerund is because you haven't heard it since 4th or 5th grade. Gerund is ing, ing. So look at what he's got above it in light blue. Juan failed from not studying. And not studying was a thing that Juan failed to do. Okay. Studying is what they call a gerund. That gerund is functioning actually as a noun. The act of studying. We're not saying Juan didn't study. Juan did something because of not studying. And when we use a noun as a gerund, as an ing, por ejemplo, working is hard. Trabajar es muy duro. We will use not the ing you think you should use, ando, yendo. No. If I'm using ing as a gerund, as a noun, to talk about it as a thing, as an action, rather than who did it in what time period, then we use it as just the infinitive. Where we do ing, they will do just the infinitive. Okay, entonces otro ejemplo. Es buena idea leer novelas de novelas de misterio es mi pasatiempo favorito. Reading mystery novels is my favorite. Reading mystery novels, leer novelas de misterio. Reading is an activity. I'm not saying I read or you read, but reading, the act of doing that. When I refer to something that way with ing, they will not use the ando, yendo. You think means ing. It does. They will use the infinitive. So when I use the verb as an activity, as a gerund, it's A-R-E-R-I-R. Mentir es mala cosa. Lying is a bad thing. Comer demasiado es mala idea. Eating too much is a bad idea. Hablar demasiado me aburre. Talking too much bores me. Escuchar música es una maravilla. Listening to music is marvelous. Is a wonder. Okay? Bien?
Okay, meaning that ing form of the verb. Okay, it can function that way. So from not studying, de no estudiar, we can use de to talk about what something is made of. It's of some sort of material. Here's one. It's a silver coin. Es una moneda de plata. Es una moneda de plata. So it's a coin of silver. It can also clarify what kind of person someone is or what kind of object something is. It can add to that object. Here's an example. If I say, she is the PE teacher, okay, we're going to say she is the teacher of PE, of physical education. So that would be in Spanish. Ella es la profesora de educación física. Okay? Ella es la profesora de educación física.
Esto es importante. This is important. Actually, these last two, they are big deals. Whenever you talk about what something is made of, la caja es de cartón. The box is made out of cardboard, right? La casa es de madera. It's a wooden house. We may say wooden house. There is no word wooden. It's de madera. The one word wooden, W-O-O-D-E-N, doesn't exist in Spanish. De madera, de madera. La escultura es de piedra. The sculpture is made out of stone. It's a stone statue. Es una estatua de piedra. Okay? Vale. Es moneda de papel. It's paper money. Vale? And then this, when we talk about a PE teacher, right? They're really using PE phys ed as a modifier for what kind of teacher it is. That's got to be tagged on with a de. It's just a pattern you have to get used to with de.
So of, teacher of PE. And you can apply that to anything. This is my math book. This is my book of math.
Math book.
you know,
Libro de-
anytime you're clarifying
Es mi libro de matemáticas. Okay. Okay.
what kind something is, you can use de. De can also be used as part of something, to clarify something is a part of something. A slice of pizza, a piece of bread. So I could use this sentence. I took a piece of bread. Tomé un trozo de pan. Tomé un trozo de pan. All right. Now, I want to give you one more, and that is the word about, because they can be about in certain situations. Now, this is definitely me when I say this, but we are not going to talk about politics. All right. I don't like talking about politics. Okay. Just bums you out, doesn't it? Okay. So the sentence, we are not going to talk about politics. You could use de to say about. So no vamos a hablar de política. All right. No vamos a hablar de política. No thanks. All right.
Okay. And the thing that people most often ask, hey, I looked up the word about and I found sobre. When do I use sobre? When do I use de? Well, they're often interchangeable, but to make communication go faster, what's faster to say, de or sobre? De or sobre? De. So very, very frequently, you'll hear this more than sobre to say about, because it's just faster to get out of your mouth. It's just faster. Eso es. A ver, bueno. Es importante. La palabra de es muy importante. Y el patrón, you know, the pattern of knowing when to use it is important. Because de can mean, you know, it's used in a whole bunch of situations. So it's more important to know all those situations than to just memorize a bunch of rules with it. See more, and each time you see an example, you should make a little note in your brain about that. ¿Tienen preguntas del video o no? Es bastante fácil, ¿no?
I had a question about, I think it was number 6, clarifying what kind of something is, like the profession.
Sí, sí.
Clarifying is different than just describing. If you know, it's kind of confusing to say that. So not to be funny, but can you clarify that?
Yeah. And you know, I would not have put that out as a separate reason, but I kind of understand why he did that.
So it wouldn't be wrong to eliminate the de and to put the profession in just as an adjective without the de. Because if the de is,
like the profesora?
yeah,
You could just say es profesora.
okay.
But now somebody may ask, ¿qué enseña? What does she teach? Es profe de educación física. Es profesor de arte. Ella es profesora de matemáticas. And so it classifies. It gives a more specific classification. Ok, otro ejemplo, que es buen ejemplo. Cuando hablamos de las películas, we talk about movies. Somebody might say what they like, what they don't like with movies, what styles, what types of movies, right? Es muy común decir, por ejemplo, no me gustan las películas de horror. Whereas we'll just say horror movies. It's got to be said, you can't say horror or películas horrores or películas horror, doesn't make sense. It's got to be películas de horror. No me gustan las películas de ciencia ficción. No me gustan las películas del romance. No me gustan mucho las películas de acción. I like action flicks. And so in other words, we're taking one noun to give a more specific classification of another noun. Película de ciencia ficción. Science fiction is a noun as well. It's not an adjective, but we're using it to describe what kind of movie, right? Acción. Acción is a noun. Es un sustantivo, ¿verdad? Pero una película de acción. Un libro de francés. We can't say libro francés, French book. Libro de, es un libro de francés. So I'm giving a more specific subcategory of that noun. I'm using one noun to tell what category it fits into. Does that make more sense?
So Marilyn, if you said, I like sports, and then you wanted to say day football or day, you know, then you could go any of those other sporting events, day baseball, day what have you.
But it's kind of like using one noun to describe, to categorize another noun. So if we took sports, Tomas, you know, if you say football, I could say German football, but then German is, that's a nationality, that's an adjective. It's just okay. Me gustan los equipos alemanes. Me gusta el fútbol alemán. Me gusta el fútbol inglés. Me gusta el fútbol americano. Fútbol americano. Those are just adjectives. So it's got to be one noun to talk about another noun. Really. You know, math, which is a thing, book, libro de matemáticas. Action, flick, película de acción.
So you would never use it just for an adjective.
No.
If an adjective followed the day, you would never use it. It's only for, the clarifying stuff is only for another noun.
The clarifying is like giving a more specific category of that particular noun, but it's using a noun to give a specific category of the noun. So it's using like two nouns back to back, right? And with sports, if I say slow sports, fast sports, you know, like you consider baseball a slow sport, maybe. Slow, fast, what nationality, those are all just adjectives. So, you know, I guess it does not lend itself to everything. It lends itself to certain situations. And, you know, por ejemplo, okay, you want to say something is a political newspaper. They are oriented one way or another. Es un periódico de política. De política says it's all about politics. It's oriented that one way. Es una revista de arte. It's an art magazine. Es una revista de belleza. It's a beauty magazine, like for ladies. Es una revista de cocinar. It's a cooking book, or a cooking magazine, Okay, so yeah, depends on the situation, right? It depends on what you're describing. Yeah. Because, okay, if you want to say she is an English teacher, you won't say es profesora inglesa. That says she's she's from Great Britain. Es una profesora inglés. Well, first of all, that doesn't match up. And then you say, oh, I'll make it feminine. Es una profesora inglesa. That says she's an English teacher, meaning she's from England. She's from the UK. Es una profesora de inglés. She's a teacher of English. And we're using English as not nationality, but a topic, a subject, therefore a noun. We're using a noun to categorize, give a sub, you know, another level of another noun. Y es común. That's a common thing. ¿Sí o no?
Sí.
Más o menos. Sí. Bueno, ok. Depende de la situación, como siempre. It always depends on the situation. You know, wow, if we had nice, hard, fast rules, it would all be so easy, wouldn't it? Yeah, but we do have to go by those individual situations. Okay. ¿Tienen más preguntas? These are good questions that you have, actually, quite good questions. ¿Sí o no?
Uno más.
Juanita, dime.
When he was talking about the time of day, I guess I hear en la noche much more than day noche.
Someone may say it that way.
So it's equivalent, right? Because
Yeah, they're pretty equivalent. I probably hear more de noche because, again, it's a little bit faster than saying en la noche. Él trabaja de noche, él trabaja de tarde, de la mañana, ok, ya. Ella estudia en una escuela de noche. She studies in a night school. Una escuela de noche, a night school. Una escuela nocturna. They may say nocturna. So also the thing to know is that, yes, many times there will be a workaround. There will be a workaround. But don't be surprised if somebody, you know, you listen to somebody speaking, they're explaining something to you, and it comes out this way when they're speaking. Very, very likely. Bien. Okay. ¿Más preguntas o no? Ahora no. Okay. We'll hopefully do a little exercise on this together, but it's going to be a very small one. Okay. A ver. I otro video, there's another video, and here she's going to talk about and para and en and de, but kind of in a different contextual way. A different contextual way. So it's looking at these little prepositions of and para and en and de in a slightly different way, or slightly different situations, let's say. Now she's going to speak all in Spanish. I'm trying to think here if I need to slow her down. I'm going to try to slow her down just a little bit so that it's a little bit more comfortable. I don't think it's necessary, but see, that's me. So I think she talks slowly. You may not think that. And you shouldn't feel self-conscious if you think that. Pero vamos a ver. She'll give you lots of examples here.
De las preposiciones que están combinadas con los verbos. Si estás interesado, quédate.
And she's going to be giving a lot of prepositions when they're combined with verbs, which is a different situation. Yeah.
Conmigo. Las preposiciones son palabras que funcionan para conectar palabras u oraciones.
Prepositions connect ideas in a sentence. That's all they do.
En este video vamos a estudiar las preposiciones a, de, en, para. Vamos a ver cómo funcionan esas preposiciones cuando usamos verbos de movimiento.
She's going to talk a lot about movement. You guys were asking about that last week. And what classifies a verb of movement? She's going to give you some verbs that are typically considered verbs of movement. They are not the only ones. There is no way for me to give you a full list, because surely as I come up with another thing, there'll be something I have left off. But these are really common ones. When we're talking about getting around town, these are probably the best ones for a traveler to know, because these verbs here, subir, bajar, salir, entrar, ir, viajar, are used all the time when travelers talk about getting in and out of vehicles, going places, traveling, going in and out of buildings, that kind of thing. You know, coming and going. So that's why the focus is there. These are the most common if you're a traveler.
¿Cuáles son los verbos de movimiento? Son subir, bajar, salir, entrar, ir y viajar.
Okay, subir, literally to go up like a ladder, a tree. But also we use subir to say that you're getting into a vehicle. Getting into a train car, getting into a car, okay? Used for getting into a vehicle. Bajar, bajar literally is the opposite of subir, it means to go down. But when you get out of a car, you step down to get out of the car. And that's really why they use bajar as get out of a vehicle. So literally, you're stepping down to get out of a vehicle, bajar. So bajar can mean to be going down, stairs, steps, ladder, okay, down one floor. But it can mean to get out of a car, to get off of the train, to get off of the bus, okay? Vale, salir, to leave. And this depends on your perspective. Are you talking about somebody leaving a place and you're talking what they're going out of? Or are you talking about they're leaving to get to a place? Salir, to say they're leaving a place, is talking about origin, where that person is coming out from. That will use one preposition. But to say you're leaving for a place and you're looking at that as a destination, that's something different, a different preposition. Same verb, salir, but different prepositions. And they tell you if the person is on their way out of a place or if they're moving towards, they want to wind up there. Are they starting from here or they want to wind up there? The preposition will tell you which way that is. Oh, whoops, entrar, to enter, but we would commonly use often as go into or come in. Often we do. This one is going to use two prepositions and they're both equal. I tend to use only one of the two, but you do hear people using both prepositions. Ir, obvio. Ir uses a, boom, done. It can use para. Ir can use para. Es posible, it is possible. But somebody may just feel like using para after ir. They may. But ir a is what is always taught because that is the most common, the quickest. Ir a, ir a, ir a. A is just, it is glued to, is wedded to that verb ir. A tells you, it is married to that verb ir. And viajar. Viajar will often use a when you want to, again, talk about the place you're going to, your destination. Okay.
Hay otros verbos de movimiento, pero en este video vamos a enfocarnos solamente en esos. Hacia el final del video vamos a tener un ejercicio, así que pon mucha atención. Vamos a empezar con la preposición a. La vamos a usar cuando queremos indicar un destino o una dirección.
We use a to talk about a direction, left, right, por ejemplo, right? Or a destination. Where you want to wind up, end up. To communicate that, you need that word a.
Por ejemplo, voy a Bogotá en septiembre. Voy a la casa de Mariela. Vamos al cine mañana. Recuerda que en este caso, al es la combinación de a y el.
So do remember, because this is a hard thing for all of us as English speakers to remember. A and el next to each other cannot stay as two separate words. And that's the only one with a that does that. It has to become al. A la, separate words, a los, separate words, a las, separate words, but al. A and el cannot be separated. Well, In some very odd situations, they will be, but very infrequently, very infrequently. Al. Okay.
Se unen y queda al. ¿Vamos al cine mañana? Entonces recuerda, usamos la preposición a con un verbo de movimiento cuando estamos hablando de una dirección o un destino. Ahora vamos a continuar con la preposición de, que en este caso es lo contrario. Cuando usamos de y un verbo de movimiento, estamos hablando de un punto de partida.
Un punto de partida, a point of departure. She's talking about de in a very different way from what the other guy talked about with de. When we're talking about de with movement, de always talks about the point of origin, where the person starts off. Okay? So the starting point, not the end point where they want to finish up, but the starting point.
De un origen. Por ejemplo, salimos de la casa de Mariela. Es decir, que estábamos en la casa de Mariela y ahora estamos afuera.
Okay, salimos de la casa de Mariela tells you that the point where that person started was la casa de Mariela. That they left Mariela's house. They're not leaving to go to Mariela's house. Salimos a la casa de Mariela tells you they want to wind up in casa de Mariela. Salimos de la casa de Mariela tells you this is the point we start off with. De, because de means of or from, de always is that point of origin. Of or from tells you origin. So with verbs of motion, and salir is one of those, salimos de tells you where the person started out. Salimos de la casa de Mariela. Salimos de la escuela. Salimos de Scottsdale. We left Scottsdale. But you're not telling where you're going to end up. You know, where you want to be when you turn the motor off and you're done driving. Bajé del carro. I got out of the car. Bajé del carro. I got out of the car. I stepped down and went outside of the car. I was inside of the car. Bajé del. I got out of it.
O este otro. Bajé
And again, you'll have a del.
del
It's
carro.
like an al.
En este caso estamos combinando de el carro. Pero no decimos de el carro, sino que lo combinamos y queda del carro. Bajé del carro. Bueno, y ahora hablemos de la preposición en. La vamos a usar cuando estamos indicando un movimiento, pero hacia adentro de un lugar.
This is movement, but going into or inside of. Yeah, that sounds like an endpoint, but going inside of something that is enclosing. Okay?
Por ejemplo, puedes decir, voy a entrar en el supermercado.
We're going into the supermarket. Entraremos is a future. We will be going into the supermarket. Don't worry about the future part of that. En el supermercado. Okay?
También puedes usarlo para expresar cosas más abstractas. Por ejemplo, entraste en mi vida o entraste en mi corazón.
All she's saying there is that sometimes people use it in an abstract way. You came into my heart, you came into my life, you're talking to a romantic partner. Okay. If you're a tourist, you're not going to be doing that unless you really met a bombshell. Wow, okay.
De todas maneras, es importante tener en cuenta que a y en, cuando están con verbos de movimiento, son realmente lo mismo. Lo que pasa es que uno de ellos es más común o es más usado, por ejemplo, en España, y el otro es más usado en América. Pero está muy bien decir entraré a la sala o entraré en la sala. Yo, por ejemplo, diría entraré a la sala. Pero otra persona puede decir entraré en la sala y está muy bien también.
Okay. And here, I often wondered why these two, there is no reason. I use entro en. I use en. She uses a. I studied in Spain. That's what they use more there. They mean the same thing. So with entrar, it doesn't matter so much. You're not messing up using a or en with entrar. You're not messing up. Entrar, it's okay to use a, it's okay to use en. People will understand you just fine, either way.
Listo, ahora mucho ojo porque vamos a hablar de la preposición para. Sí, esa preposición que nos da un poquito de dificultad, también con por, para y por son preposiciones que son un poquito complicadas porque tienen muchos usos. En este video te voy a hablar de para y lo vamos a usar o lo vamos a estudiar con verbos de movimiento. Es muy común usar para expresar movimiento hacia algún lugar o dirección hacia algún lugar. Por ejemplo, puedes decir salió para la universidad. También puedes decir salió a la universidad, pero puedes escuchar a algunas personas decir salió para la universidad o fuimos para la tienda, es decir, que fuimos a la tienda.
So you can use para and a interchangeably with verbs like this to talk about a destination, to talk about where you want to end that journey of movement. Salió para is the same as salió a. Fuimos para is the same as fuimos a. Somebody will use what they feel like. But don't let it throw you if you hear somebody say, you know, fuimos para el parque. Fuimos para el parque. When somebody says fuimos para el parque, para tells you automatically, boom, destination. Fuimos para el parque, we went to the park. Fuimos al parque, exact same meaning, but using a different word. That's all. Sometimes people just feel like using para, and they may even shorten that word para to really confuse you and say it as pa. And lots of times in Mexico and Latin America in particular, and it depends on the dialect and the accent, but shortening para, P-A-R-A, to just plain old pa is kind of like us shortening going to gonna. You do it, what are you gonna do? You may hear it as salimos para la universidad. They may literally swallow the last half of the word para. It may happen because when they're talking fast, they'll just do that. So know that may happen.
Entonces recordemos, puedes usar a o para indicar destino o dirección. Voy para la tienda, voy para la universidad, voy a la universidad, voy a la tienda. Es lo mismo. Puedes usar de con un verbo de movimiento para expresar origen o punto de partida. Por ejemplo, salí de la casa de Mariela o bajé del carro. Bueno, ¿qué tal si hacemos un ejercicio y tú escoges la preposición?
Okay, she's going to give you some practice here.
Es la preposición correcta en cada oración. ¿Listo? El fin de semana voy a, en, de, mi ciudad. La respuesta correcta es, el fin de semana voy a mi ciudad.
That's just going to be kind of like the easiest one. Voy a, voy a, voy a.
Porque en este caso la ciudad es el destino.
But notice we don't say voy en. We don't use voy en. Okay, I'm gonna, oh God, of course, because I thought of an example. Voy en carro. Voy en carro doesn't mean my destination is the car. It means I'm going by means of a car. Voy en carro means I'm using car as the vehicle. Okay. But I don't get the car saying, okay, this is where I'm meant to be, inside the car. It means I'm taking the car to get someplace. Okay. So yeah, voy en carro might happen, but never, you know, voy en Phoenix. Voy en la tienda. It's voy a, voy a, voy a, right? Okay.
Siguiente oración. Bajé al, bajé del, bajé en el avión hace 5 minutos.
Avión, plane. Bajé, I got out of.
En este caso la respuesta correcta es bajé del avión hace 5 minutos.
I got off the plane 5 minutes ago. Bajé del avión, it's a past. I got out of the plane, bajé del avión.
Get off.
Okay, I stepped out of it hace 5 minutos, 5 minutes ago. It makes 5 minutes that I did this activity, meaning I did it ago. Hace 5 minutos, they have no word for ago. So they use bajé, preterite, with hace 5 minutos, and then we insert that English word ago.
¿Por qué? Porque el avión es el origen o el punto de partida. Y recuerda que de, el, se transforma en del. Bajé del avión. Siguiente oración. Entramos en, entramos de o entramos a la casa y nos sentamos.
We went in the house and we sat down.
En este caso puedes escoger 2 preposiciones. Puedes decir entramos en la casa o entramos a la casa.
So there are 2 correct ways to say that. And it doesn't really matter, and you'll be equally understood no matter which one you use. Entramos a casa. I use entramos en casa, but see, she likes entramos a casa better. Ella prefiere entramos a casa, pero no importa.
A ver la siguiente oración. Salimos del apartamento al, de, para el cine. En esta oración, el cine es el destino, entonces puedes usar 2 preposiciones. Puedes escoger al cine o para el cine. Recuerda que a y el se combinan y queda al.
Okay, I'm going to point something out. You get both the point of departure and the end point in the same sentence. Del apartamento tells where they started out. I left walking out of this thing called apartamento, but the place I headed for was cine. So al cine. They might say para el cine. Al cine is faster and shorter to say.
Al cine. Y la última oración. Subí en, subí al, subí del 5º piso del edificio.
Quinto piso es el piso floor of a building, número 5. Quinto piso, número 5, en el orden de 5. Okay? So it'll be, actually that'll be 6th floor, really? Because the first floor isn't first floor, it's planta baja. So in many places, that'll really be 6th floor, even so, though to you it says 5th. Because they don't consider the first floor first. It's, ground floor. The ground floor, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, okay. So I went up to 5th floor or 6th floor, depending on how you interpret.
La respuesta correcta en este caso es subí al 5º piso, porque en este caso el 5º piso es el destino. Y recuerda, a, el Al.
Al.
Subí al quinto piso del edificio.
Destination.
Bueno, en este video no quería realmente darte una lista de preposiciones y verbos, sino más bien darte una guía de cómo usar.
Okay, es una guía. That is a guide. Es la verdad. It is a guide. Okay. Entonces, vamos a ver. I am going to give you some. We're going to take a look at a couple of exercises with this to see how you do with it. Let's see if I can make this bigger.
Help.
Puedo engrandecer. Is this big enough or is this going to be super tiny for you guys?
Pretty tiny, but I could get really close.
Pretty tiny? Okay, then let's not do pretty tiny.
Ah, that's better. That's better.
Mejor, ¿no?
No.
Mucho mejor, mucho mejor. Okay, un voluntario, por favor. Voy a Madrid.
N.
And
We're just looking at N or A here. So we filtered it down. Voy a Madrid
En
would
3 días.
en 3 días, in 3 days. Okay, that one's a little bit easier. Vamos a hacerlo las 6 o'clock.
A las 6.
A las 6.
alas.
So here's one of those knee-jerk reaction phrases. A las 6, time period. Oh, wait, time period. No. Mejor decir la hora del día. The hour of the day. An hour off the clock.
The time.
A las. Right?
Alas.
Because look, these words en and a can also mean at. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And that's where you start getting messed up. When en or at means at. At 6 o'clock. How do you say at? Sometimes at is translated as a. Sometimes at is translated as en. And it really depends on the situation. Okay. Ricardo no quiere ir a la fiesta, en la fiesta.
Ir a.
Bien. Ellos viven
N.
En Mexico.
en Mexico. Viven, live in, is not a verb of movement. There is no motion with vivir. There just isn't. It's where they live. That means static, stationary. Static, stationary, en. Boom. Okay. Tengo que dar ese dinero a mi mamá. Oh, you can look at this as the money has a destination of it's supposed to go to mom. You may think of it that way. Los platos están en la mesa. En can mean in or on top of. En la mesa, on the table. You could say encima de la mesa, on top of the table, but that takes kind of a long time. En la mesa, muy común. Okay, voy a hablar. Oh, I already gave the answer, darn. Guy, voy a hablar. Voy a, with a place, a physical, geographical place. Voy a la oficina, voy a la escuela, voy al parque, voy a la casa de mi vecino, voy al carro. Okay, so a destination, and voy with an infinitive. Voy just, or vamos, or vas, or va, always uses a. Voy a hablar. Here we have the infinitive, el infinitivo aquí. Mi primo empezó, oh, my cousin started. Empezar, like ir, uses that little word a. It just does. And this is, in a sense, redundant. He started to dance. Some verbs, like ir, must have that little word a. Empezar is one of them. Empezar with a second infinitive must use a in between the two. Comenzar, which means the same thing, plus an infinitive, must have a between the two. Aprender, to learn, with a second infinitive, must have a. These verbs just use a all the time. They translate to nothing at all in English. Okay? Not a thing. It means nothing in English, that little word a. It just those verbs, ir, empezar, comenzar, aprender, they must use a. They just have to. That's one of their rules. Escuché esta canción. I listened to this song.
N.
En la radio. En la radio. On the radio. There is no movement to escuchar.
Mm.
Not a verb of movement. It may prompt you to move, but escuchar by itself is not a verb of movement. So I'm not going to use a with that, okay? Always in. La película es
N.
en inglés. Is in English, well, we just need en. And you're going to see, I'll give you the link for this. You can use different drills with this, and you can check yourself a bunch of times, okay? And you can click to get the answers. And it'll go up to different levels, okay? Another little thing I want to tell you about this word a is something that you guys and everybody who starts as an English speaker, everybody, 100%, 100%, everybody messes up on this, guys. And that is when we use a as the personal a. And what does that mean? That means that there's a human being after that word a. And that human being is receiving the action of the verb, not doing the action of the verb, but receiving the action of the verb. Okay. So that's one of those things that really takes some time to get used to. Voy a darles un ejemplo. I'm going to give you an example. I'm looking to see if I've got it in my, oh, sí, lo tengo. Okay, I'll have another explanation that you'll see on the screen, but you'll see that for homework to work on your own. Okay, a ver. Vamos a practicar aquí. I'm going to share something with you. We're going to take a look at that a personal, because sometimes a means nothing at all. It translates to absolutely nothing. And why is it doing this to me? Ay, por Dios. It's giving me nothing to work on. Let's try. Ooh. Trying to get my whiteboard, but it is not giving me anything except a pencil, which means you're going to see me write like a second grader, because I can't write with a mouse. No lo puedo hacer. Es imposible. Okay. Vamos a tratar una vez más. We're going to try doing this. La tecnología me frustra. Technology is frustrating me. Okay, it's going to force me to do it this way, guys. Sorry. Okay. You get to see second grade writing. Veo al carro. Veo al carro. Veo al carro. I see the car. Is the car a human being? No. I see the car. I might see a car, a bird, a squirrel, a dog. I might see Miss Smith. I might see the worker at the grocery store. I might see you guys. If whatever is receiving that action of ver is a human being, I need the a personal. Okay? And this indicates to people who speak Spanish that when people hear that word their brain clicks into, I'm going to hear about a person. Okay, so instead of veo al carro, it might be veo a Roberto. Veo a Roberto. Veo a Roberto. I see Bob. Veo a Berto. This little word means nothing at all in English. It means nothing. It translates to nothing. It does not mean to, T-O, at all. Veo a Roberto just tells somebody that I'm doing the action of seeing, and the thing I see is a human being. That's it. Okay? Otro ejemplo. Ayudamos. 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 Ayudamos a los hombres. Ayudamos a los hombres. We're helping the men. We're doing the helping, but who we're helping is a group of people. So I must use that little word, ayudamos a los hombres. And of course, when people are speaking fast, you're going to have to listen for it. Ayudamos a los hombres. No es correcto decir ayudamos los hombres. It's not really correct to say ayudamos los hombres. You've got to have an in there. That is a hard thing for us to do because we have no equivalent to it in English. And your brain desperately does not see any reason to do this. It sees no reason, therefore it doesn't do it. Ayudamos a los hombres. Hablamos a mi hija. Hablamos a mi hija. We're talking to my daughter. Hablamos a mi hija. Ok, vale, ¿entienden?
Sí.
No entiendo. No entiendo. No entiendo. I don't understand. No entiendo matemáticas muy bien. No entiendo la física, physics, para nada, at all. For nothing. No entiendo la física, no entiendo las matemáticas. No entiendo el negocio de la industria. I don't understand the industry kind of business stuff. Pero no entiendo a Anita. No entiendo a Anita. I don't just understand that girl at all because I don't understand a human being now. I need that little word So sometimes will not be motion or movement. It all depends on the context of that sentence. Sometimes works with verbs of motion. Sometimes is the personal, and in English it means nothing at all. Depende del tu contexto. It always depends on the context. Entonces es un poquito complicado. So it is kind of a complicated thing. I'm going to show you something that we're going to work. We did not get to our verbs like usted. Perdón. So pardon me for not getting to that. Perdón otra vez. I've got to pull up my screens. Okay. Vale. Lo que van a hacer, what you guys are going to do for homework. You're going to get a code in the, you're going to get a code in the email. And you will see this lesson on Nearpod. And it will actually start with a preview. And in this, well, no, this is preview for me, actually. What it is going to do for you, it will start out with a poll. And you are going to take a poll, which will be totally private. You know, I don't care about names. You're just going to check out however many boxes. Oh, which topics would you like me to touch upon during the fall? So it will start with a whole bunch of topics. Check the things that you want to make sure I do a review on. if you don't see the thing that your heart most desires, because you want to know vocabulary about sports. You want to know, you want to know vocabulary in a department store, lo que sea, whatever it may be. If you don't see it on that list, post it here. Just post it, okay? The next page is going to talk about all these prepositions we talked about in class. And it's going to be a quick rundown with definitions. It's going to give you that first video, so I don't have to give you a separate link. It's going to give you the second video, so you don't need a separate link. It'll all be in this one link, okay? Now, the first video, he only focused on de and very common ways that you use de in everyday conversation. The second video talks more about en, de, para, and a with verbs. Those are not the only uses of those prepositions, but they are some very common ones. We'll talk a little bit about hitches, things that are a problem. I'll give you some clues about, especially with about point of departure versus point of destination and the a personal, because that's where we mess up. I'll give you a whole bunch of stuff with de, which are your takeaways from that particular video. And then you get to do a fill in the blank. Yay! Fill in the blank. And you're going to pick things from down here. And I think it will ask you, yes, it will ask you to do like that. Okay? To bring it to click on it, drag it up. Okay? And then click on done when you're done with that. And I think that is the end of that one, I believe. Sí lo es. It is. Vale, okay? So you'll have a nice little rundown on that. I will also, however, give you this website here, because this will give you a whole bunch of, and I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller because I made it super big. It's going to give you a whole bunch of things, but I want to caution you, you probably don't want to focus on the por and para right now because your brain's going to go on overload, okay? This has prepositions, so it's going to talk about a lot of them. Focus on the ones we did. Do a whole bunch of examples with, we did the first one with en or a. There's a second one with en or a. There's one that has na and it throws in de. There's another one that is na and throws in de, and a third one, okay? And then you've got personal a. So all of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it will give you corrections for the answers. So you're going to see right away when you finish the exercise, click on the give answers. You're going to see a whole bunch of examples. Está bien, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Okay. I do not want you to go beyond those words because getting set with those patterns is enough to do, enough. And I'll give you the next episodes for El tiempo entre costuras, destinos. I want you to notice, if you did not watch Destinos, watch last week's. You are going to hear a lot of these prepositions, and you're going to hear a lot of verbs that sound like gustar. Those two topics, in I think it was episode 10 that you were supposed to do last week, I would kind of like everybody to go back and look at Destinos again from last week, this week we're in now, that you did the prep. And listen for these prepositions and listen for verbs like gustar, because you're going to hear some examples of those. And I promise we will get to those next week. We will practice some more with en, de, a, para, okay? We're going to do it with some conversational question type things to put you out in breakout rooms. And then we are going to get into take any questions you've got on that, and then we're going to get into verbs like usted. ¿Está bien? I think that's actually enough. For the week.
Yeah.
If you want me to give you the near pod lesson for verbs like gustar, I can give that to you as a preview. Do you wish to do that because prepositions is such short word stuff? Or
Sure.
no?
No. I'll focus on prepositions. But if you do it, I'll look at it.
I think it is better to focus on the prepositions and look at those patterns and look at as many examples as you can. And actually, if I find some other example patterns, I may even send you one more extra link. But I think that's going to be enough for now, because actually I want to like come back, see what questions you have, and send you off to talk about stuff. And what I'm going to do is next week, I'm going to here are typical things that you may say as a tourist that will use a, de, para, en. I'm going to give you the English because that's what your brain is going to think in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to want you to get off in groups and say, how would you ask somebody this? Or how would you give somebody this information and translate this idea into Spanish? So you're going to be working from English to Spanish, which I don't do very often. I don't get into the whole translation thing that often, but it is really only meaningful to you in that kind of context, because you're going to be thinking in English and you got to come up with the Spanish for it. Bien?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sí, sí.
Algunos ejemplos van a ser muy obvios, otros ejemplos no van a ser muy obvios. So some are going to be easy softball kind of feel, because some of them will be, but some of them won't be, and they should be things you're prepared to do, because I will pick things that are common for people when they're traveling. ¿Vale? Magnífico. Okay. Muy bien. All those little exercises should get you prepped to come in and do that quick translation next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantástico. Okay, mi clase. Muy bien. I think we lost poor Marlene. I know she had some connection issues. Pobre Marlene. She will have to watch the rest on video, but that's why we got that. Okay. Muy bien. Vamos a ver. ¿Hay preguntas o no?
I had a question about subir when it's used in getting into the car.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be a preference for, since it means going up, would you do the or I know and n are interchangeable, but what's the common? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
See. All right. And a lot of these, you just have to get used to that. You have to just get used to the pattern. And that's one of those kind of pesky little patterns you just have to get used to. Bajar, you're getting out of it, out of the vehicle. So it's de, right? And subimos because we're winding up there. But you won't use para with subir. I've never heard anybody use para with subir. Because, you get into a car, it's not like a great big, we're going to this destination. You're just getting into the car, right?
Since this was an enclosed vehicle, I didn't know whether N was used to.
Now, okay, and I'm going to tell you, if let's say you flub up and you use N, somebody is going to understand you. Okay. Because they know that N means inside of. They will understand you. It's just that it's less jarring to somebody to hear the right thing coming out of your mouth, right? As opposed to, oh, I didn't expect that word. Oh, okay, they mean that. And that's a little thing. But, it's really helpful to think of de as the origin point, the starting point, and a as the end point where you want to finish. Para as the end point where you want to finish. And, well, you're going inside of something. And I know, wow, why not just subí en el auto? But yeah, subí al auto. Okay. Así es, so it is. I wish there were always logical reasons. Sometimes I think that's very logical. And then I think, no, there's really no reason for that. But I'm just used to it. So see, I have to think like a person learning French. I say, why did they do that? They just do. Yeah. Para mí no es muy obvio, pero así es. So it is. Ustedes son maravillosos. You guys are really great. I will let you trail off to chit chat about anything you so desire. En inglés o en español, a mí no me importa.
Adios.
All right.
Bien.
All right. Well,
Adios.
hasta